40 Mound Hill Road North Solar LLC's and Mound Hill Road Solar LLC's requests for special use permits to construct and operate commercial energy systems in the county. I've always wondered how you'd know what these are, why I even explain it. But if you are searching, somehow can hear me and you're searching for the Zoom meeting info, the Zoom ID is 915-3923-9154. And the password is 209840. If you want to, that's if you want to interact. And if you want to just listen to us and observe us on YouTube, on your cell phone or your computer browser, go to www.youtube.com. In the search bar, type Lee County IL for Illinois, obviously, Zoning Board of Appeals. You don't have to worry about upper or lowercase letters. Find the session date you want, which is presumably tonight, April 10th, 2025, and voila, you should be seeing us. As far as taking roll, I note the presence of Zoning Board of Appeals Vice Chair, Mr. Burrow, Board Member Luke Phelan, Board Member Tim Crawford, Zoning Officer Alice Hinkle. I think on Zoom, Assistant State's Attorney Stephanie is with us. Petitioners Counsel, Mr. Staniford. Our IT whiz, Jonathan, is with us. Our court reporter, Callie, has joined us from afar, from a trip. Myself, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. 4 petitioners reps. Oops. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 interested parties. And I think and on Zoom we have, besides Ms. Sasser, we have one other interested party on Zoom. Okay, very good. Well, we'll pick up where we left off, which, if I recall, Mr. Schwer, you were on the witness stand, and it was time for interested parties to ask any questions they might have of you. So step on up. The Slavin rules in effect. You got to be, once the clock strikes midnight, you got to be sworn in again. Solemnly swear testimony, or affirm the testimony about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. All right. Interested parties, questions of Mr. Schwer, just raise your hand and I'll call on you in order of your, or none. Okay, sir, you want to step up to the podium right in front of you? If the mic's not on, push the button, turn it to green.
Testing.
Yep. You don't have to hold it. It'll as long as you get reasonably close to it, it'll pick you up.
Okay.
I'll help you get started. State your name, please.
Nick Hermes.
Mr. Hermes, are you a resident of Lee County?
Yes, I am.
Do you own a business in Lee County?
No, I do not.
Okay. Where do you live in Lee County?
I live on 1690 Mound Hill.
Okay, very good. And you have some questions of Mr. Schwer? You may ask him questions.
Okay. In your petition for special use, why are Mound Hill Road North Solar LLC and Mound Hill Road South Solar LLC stated as owners of the real estate, legally described rather than being a lessee?
I'm not familiar with that exact section that you're referring to, but we are lessees of the parcel.
Wait, what'd you say?
We are lessees of the parcel.
Sundial is lessee of the parcel?
The Mound Hill Road North Solar LLC and Mound Hill Road South Solar LLC are the lessees.
They are lessees. Okay. All right, you said Clean Capital Holdings is the owner of both Mound Hill Road North Solar LLC and Mound Hill Road South Solar LLC. And they did the oversight. And
that's 2 questions. Let's just ask a question, please.
When you said these LLCs will be marked to be sold, when would these be sold?
That's dependent on commercial transaction, obviously. Likely within the next few months.
Within the next few months, they would be sold?
It's possible, yes.
My concern is, what countries would potentially be buyers be from? What
Well,
countries
let's
would they
start
be
with a
buying?
foundation question. Would any countries buy it?
Would any countries be buying it? Any countries other than the United States?
It's unlikely that a sovereign nation would purchase the projects. It will likely be an asset manager.
Well, just answer questions, please. Let's not start that.
Okay.
Just, you answer the question, he'll ask the question.
All right, good enough. You said it. All right. If you can't tell us this information, who can?
What information exactly are you looking for?
About the potential buyers.
I would be able to address a question if you have a specific one about who could buy it.
Yeah. Who would be the buyers?
Likely be an institutional asset manager with experience operating projects similar to this.
And do you know those people personally?
We have relationships with several of them, yes.
With the new site plans, the Midway Drive-In is still in the radius of 1,320 feet of the 1,500 feet from the North Solar facility.
No,
There'll
you gotta
be any
stop.
interference.
Wait,
Where there'll be
got-
interference.
Mr. Hermes, please, you've got to stop that. You can't tell him things. Just ask him a question.
All right, will there be
The
any
question is,
will there be
I'll help you out.
interference? Will there be
Mr.
interference?
Hermes, you're talking over the top of me. Let me help you out. Would the Midway Drive-In be within, or let's phrase it this way, do you know within what radius the Midway Drive-In would be of this proposed project?
1,320 feet.
You're not on the witness stand. You're not answering questions. I'm helping you by asking him a question.
Help me out here. I don't do this all this. This isn't my job.
I'll ask it again. Mr. Schwer, if you know, within what radius would the projects be of the Midway Drive-In?
It appears to be approximately within that 1,500-foot radius around the project parcel.
And would there be any radio transmission interference with that?
There would not be.
All right, I saw in the decommission report how things are cleaned up in a natural disaster like hail, wind, damaged solar panels such as a manor. There are broken pieces on the ground everywhere. How are they taken? How is this decommissioned? How is this taken care of after a natural disaster?
Our civil engineer, Andy Galone with CEC, is here tonight. He prepared the decommissioning report. If I can ask that question to him.
Repeat that.
We have Andy Galone with CEC who prepared the decommissioning report tonight. He will be discussing that.
Regards to a natural disaster happening? If
With
that was
respect to the
to happen on
decommissioning,
Mount Hill.
If you know the answer to a question, say, answer the question. If you don't know the answer to a question, just say, I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, you said that supports for the solar panels will go down 8 to 12 feet and they will be pile driven or augered in. Report in Lee County Soils Water Conservation says both sites going down about 5 feet. There's 100% high risk of corrosion of steel. What type of post will be used? And if it's galvanized, how are they tested for the longevity of the galvanization so there will be no issue with corrosion?
That's the longest question I ever heard.
Yeah.
Would the host be galvanized, Mr. Schwer?
Likely.
Okay. Then follow it up with your next question.
Repeat that. What'd you say?
They'll likely have galvanization in the posts.
Yeah, you
the
said that. You
piles.
said that in our report. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, good enough. All right, so we'll have something to say at the end.
That's it?
I will also have something to say at the end.
I said that. Is that it?
Yeah.
All the questions you got?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Okay. Anybody, any other interested parties? To help you get started, state your name.
My name's Griffin Thewison.
You got to say that a little slower for the court reporter.
My name's Griffin Thewison, Thueson.
Thueson?
Yeah, T-H-T.
Chris with a C-H-R-I? No, Chris with C-H-R-I-S.
My first name's Griffin.
Oh, Griffin, I'm sorry. And then your last name is
Thewis.
P-H-U-E-S-O-N?
Yeah, T-H-U-E.
Go ahead. And I'm sorry. Are you a resident of Lee County?
Yes.
And where do you live?
1724 Broadview Drive, the housing development. What's it called?
All right. Questions of Mr. Schwer?
Right. Got a handful. At the beginning of the last session, you stated that the reason Palmyra Township did not want the solar field built was due to aesthetics. Is that true?
Yes.
I would just like to go through and remind you of some other concerns that
You're not here to remind him anything. You're here to ask him questions.
I'm just
If you want to
explaining the questions
testify,
I'm about
if-
to ask.
Okay.
Just
ask
let me
a
finish,
question.
please.
Questions start with how, why, who, when, did, is.
Yes, I know. Trust me, I prepared for this. I know. So I just wanted to go through some of the reasons that we feel that this solar panel field is going to affect us. You made a statement last session that there is no hazardous materials used in the construction of these solar panels and installation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do you consider yourself educated enough regarding hazardous materials to make that statement?
Reasonably.
Are you familiar with the Natural Resources Information Report that was submitted?
Generally.
The Natural Resources Information Report that submitted indicated the likelihood of the corrosion of steel to be what percentage?
I don't have that exact number.
May I provide it? Or
No,
am I
no,
only allowed to ask
He's answered your
questions?
question. If you want to ask him a question like, does 50% sound familiar? That's fine.
Okay. Does 100% sound reasonable as that being something that the report might say as far as the corrosion of steel?
It may.
After receiving this report and with engineering this project, what did you decide to use to attach the solar panels to the ground?
That will be determined in final engineering. We haven't made that selection yet.
So the pylons that the engineering plan talks about are not going to be used?
It would be something similar to that. And
Something
it
similar
would
to
be,
that?
we would ultimately make that selection based on soil, additional research from our geotechnical reports and things like that.
So what would be most likely the material that you would use to install these panels?
Steel
Into
piles
the
would be the
ground.
most likely.
And that would be galvanized steel.
It likely would.
Do you know what coats galvanized steel?
Generally,
Yeah.
I generally am familiar with the galvanization process.
What heavy metal is used to galvanize steel?
I believe it's zinc.
Yep. Okay. How many tons of steel would potentially be used in this project to mount these solar panels?
I'm not sure.
How do you plan, if you use this galvanized steel, how would you be putting those into the ground?
They would be pile driven.
Pile driven. Would it be reasonable to say that that zinc coating may not hold up to being pile driven into the ground?
There's nothing that I have that would lead me to believe that right now.
So with this galvanized steel being placed in the ground and the potential that that zinc is released into the soil, is there anything in your environmental plan or decommissioning to repair the damages that may be done from that?
We do in our lease contract have environmental remediation clauses that would govern that.
Is there any way to remove zinc from soil like that?
I'm not sure.
In your environmental plan, did you guys take into consideration any potential contamination to the groundwater in that area?
We just completed our soil testing last week, so that will be consideration.
If it is found that there's a potential risk of zinc or lead being leached into the groundwater, what alternatives would you be able to use to mount these panels?
There are, you could use helical screws as well, but there are a variety of manufacturers that produce racking.
What are helical screws composed of generally?
Likely steel.
So how would that prevent zinc or lead from reaching groundwater or contaminating the soil? It's the same composition.
I would have to have the construction team or somebody in procurement give you that exact answer. I'm not familiar with the actual procurement process of in that final selection.
Is there any kind of environmental study that you guys will perform to ensure that that doesn't happen?
Like I said, in our lease contract, we do have clauses around environmental remediation and things.
So if you guys don't meet those, then the county can revoke your special use permit.
Not exactly familiar with that.
Do you know how deep the water table is on this project?
Not off the top of my head.
Would anywhere from 0 to 50 feet be reasonable from any recollection of that report that you can recall?
Seems reasonable.
When steel rusts, what element is left behind?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Would lead be reasonable to suspect?
Reasonable.
Do you know what any health risks that are associated with lead are?
Generally.
When will the environmental impact study be complete?
We have a phase 1 on the project right now, phase 1 report, indicating that did a historical review of the site.
Does that environmental impact study have to be complete before the special use permit is given?
No,
I guess I'd have to ask the county. Do you think these are reasonable concerns for those who live near this property are, as far as health, the possible zinc and lead that may be leaked into the ground?
my understanding is that lead is a byproduct of the galvanization process and in very limited quantities.
Okay. Would you guys be willing to test the well water of the neighboring homes at the beginning and during and throughout the project and over the next 30 years to make sure that the well water is not contaminated?
I think that would be a step beyond what we would look to do for this project.
Well, can you explain a little further, a step beyond?
I don't think that we're looking to test existing water. And I understand we're focused specifically on our leased area. That's what we have land rights to.
But that would be an unreasonable request as far as an environmental impact that may.
I'm not
occur?
familiar of us having done that anywhere else.
It's probably never been requested. Regarding property values, when I talked to you at the Palmyra Township meeting, we talked about if you'd gotten a second opinion on property values. Have you?
No.
Is that an unreasonable request?
We will have Mike Marus here to review his, provide a property value impact report and his testimony and research on that.
When will we have access to that report?
We do have copies tonight. I've emailed it also to Alice Henkel and hoping to get it on Lee County website shortly.
Would you allow others in this area to find a second party to look at property values and consider that?
Michael Marus will also be, he could be cross-examined after his testimony.
Okay. You claimed at the last meeting that you were going to provide jobs for the community. Can you explain a little more on how you're going to do that?
Yeah, typically these projects would generate 15 to 30 construction jobs, and there would be, 1 or 2 operations and maintenance jobs ongoing.
What would your definition of the local community be?
It's ultimately going to be up to the owner who builds and operates the system, but certainly would have likely interaction with local contractors in the area would be preferable.
So this would just be an assumption, not a guarantee that local contractors would be used.
Correct.
Would you be willing to make any kind of promise or addendum to make sure that some percentage of the project goes to local companies within a 40-mile radius?
That ultimately will be up to the owner that is going to construct and operate the system on who they select. I wouldn't be able to make a decision for them.
So you're saying that you could not include that in the deal when you sell this to them?
Correct.
That you couldn't, or you don't want to?
We likely would not.
So that you would not want to, not that you could not.
Correct.
At the last session, you stated that those who lived in this area could benefit from energy credits. Could you expound on that?
With respect to like ComEd and the subscriber savings.
Yep.
So the power that's generated would ultimately be sold, if you will, to subscribers, homes and businesses. And as part of their subscription, they would receive a bill credit on their electricity bill.
Who pays for that bill credit? Or where does that money come from?
That's just the savings from the project that is at the election of the operator to determine what amount of a bill credit they will provide. It does have to be 10%.
So the bill credit will come from the solar company, the owner of the solar company.
Correct. They would just sell the energy essentially at a discounted rate.
And that bill credit would not come from the federal government at all.
No, not on ComEd's subscribers, no.
Are you sure about that?
The bill credits flow directly through ComEd.
But who pays the bill credit? The earnings from the solar company or the federal government?
That would be the solar company.
So when you talked about the drain tiles and a survey to figure out where the drain tiles are and make sure that none of them are damaged. How do you guys perform that survey?
I'm not an expert in drain tile surveying.
Who could I ask about the drain tiles then?
Possibly our civil engineer here tonight, or ideally a drain tile surveying company.
So are you going to supply somebody from the drain tile survey company to come to one of these meetings that I can speak to?
We don't have that planned.
So
We
is
would
there any
typically-
way to get an answer to this question?
How are they typically performed?
Yes, or how is it going to be performed? How are you going to figure out where the drain tiles are?
Perhaps I can answer generally. I mean, they're looking, I think, underground. They can use different surveying equipment that would be able to identify underground structures.
So it's your guys' responsibility to make sure that you do not damage any drain tiles. And if you do damage any drain tiles, that you repair them, correct?
That's correct.
There is a chance that doing the survey that you may miss some drain tiles, correct?
Possible.
So if you're driving pylons, how would you even know if you damaged the tiles?
I don't have an exact answer for that.
But ultimately, it is your responsibility to make sure that you do not damage any tiles and that if you do, you repair them.
That's
correct?
correct. Yep.
You claim that these solar panels are anti-reflective, correct?
They have an anti-reflective coating on them.
Do you know how much UV is emitted or how much glare still comes from them?
I don't. We are not expecting any glare from this project.
You are not expecting any glare from this project.
Correct.
Do you know what the definition of glare is?
Not specifically.
So you can make that statement even though you don't know what the definition of glare is.
We have run, internally, we've run glare studies simulated on Forge Solar. And those reports indicated to us based on existing landscape and the proposed landscaping that there's not any glare from this project.
Okay. That doesn't make any sense, but okay.
Let's not editorialize, just ask questions.
Will the tilt of the solar panels be directed at the roadway?
Yeah, they will go east-west. Mound Hill Road is west of the project.
So will this affect any traffic flowing down that road
No,
and potential glare?
no. When we simulated it, there was no glare on Mound Hill Road.
I guess my last question would be, is if the county decided not to approve this special use permit, would you seek legal action against the county?
He can't answer the county. I agree with that.
All right, that's all I got.
Okay. Other interested parties? How about on Zoom? And any, remember how to raise hand? You go down to the bar at the bottom of the Zoom screen and you find participant and then you click on raise hand. Give you a couple minutes here to, or a minute to find that. See any hands? Speak up if you're trying to find the hand raised, otherwise I'll move along. Okay. I have some follow-up questions from the last time. Would you please again describe the relationship between the two Mount Hill Road LLCs, Sundial Energy and Clean Capital?
Yes, the two LLCs are the operating companies for the projects. Sundial Energy is, we have a development partnership with Clean Capital. So we are actively developing them, overseeing the engineering and things. And then Clean Capital is the ultimate owner of those LLCs right now.
Sundial, say what Sundial does again.
We oversee essentially the interconnection and permitting process of these projects.
So is it fair to call Sundial the developer?
Yes,
Okay. And so the LLCs are owned by Clean Capital, right?
correct.
Okay, thank you. If you recall, if you don't, just say you don't, how much farther from Mount Hill Road have the solar panel arrays been moved under the revised site plan?
Approximately 300 feet for Mound Hill Road North and approximately 600 feet for Mound Hill Road South, both of those eastward.
300 feet east for the north, 600 feet east for the south, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Would all solid waste related to construction, operation, maintenance of the commercial solar energy facility be removed from the site promptly and disposed of in accordance with all federal, state, and local laws?
Yes,
Is it correct that the point of interconnection would be the substation south of these two facilities?
the point of interconnection will be on the southeastern side of both of the projects along Mound Hill Road.
On the west side or east
Or
side?
sorry, west side, correct.
On the, so it's southwest side of Mount Hill Road, right? How,
Of the project, correct.
of the project?
Yes.
Yeah. Wait a minute, it's on, okay, it's on the southwest, it's still in the project area then, right?
It's on site and it's
Yeah.
identified on the site
Okay.
plan.
And is it just one point of interconnection or there one for each facility?
One for each facility.
And from there, then when is the where would the generated electricity move?
It would flow along the three-phase lines, running north-south along Mound Hill Road, and it would go back to the substation on River Road in Sterling. Whatever's not used on that existing circuit,
Three-phase lines are located where? Along?
along Mound Hill Road.
Okay. To a River Road, you said, substation? About how far away is that substation?
Approximately 3.5 miles.
Thank you. Does the site plan show the electric, all of the electric cabling to that substation?
It does not. That is owned by ComEd. Everything after the point of interconnection is owned by ComEd.
Oh, everything after the point of interconnection is ComEd.
Correct.
Did the petitioners provide copies of the site plan, standard operating procedures, and standard operating guidelines to emergency responders?
We've Andy Galone who will testify about that tonight.
Okay. So you pass on the question?
Pass.
Okay. And again, in what general direction would the axis of the arrays be?
North-south.
Single axis?
Correct.
Would either of the access roads shown on the north or south site plans be open to the public?
No.
If you know, how far apart would the five ComEd required utility poles be spaced?
Approximately 50 feet.
Are the location of those poles shown on the site plan?
Yes, they are.
Would the Mound Hill North project also include a new culvert for its access road?
Yes, it will.
your site plan legend indicates that any existing overhead lines are shown in a thin, solid gray line marked OH-E. Forgive my eyesight, but can you point out where those are on the site plan? That says OHE there somewhere?
Small in my
Okay.
printout.
The witness is showing me on the site plan to the, it'd be to the west side of, I've got, which one? South in my hand? On the very west edge of the project site. Okay, thank you. Would there be communication lines running between the solar panels?
Yes.
And what's the nature of those?
Typically smaller DC lines, electric lines.
Carrying digital information? Would either or both of the transformers and inverters have a base on or at or above ground level?
Possibly.
And if they did, what kind of base would it be?
Likely less than a foot tall.
Made of what material?
Oh, concrete.
And I know there was testimony, I just couldn't read my notes. Describe the construction of the access roads.
So we'll remove the topsoil and lay down a.
How far?
Approximately 12 inches, I believe.
Then,
And then we will lay down a geotextile fabric. And on top of that, we will put class 5 aggregate.
class 5 aggregate.
Mhm.
How deep?
Andy Galone tonight, our civil engineer, will provide testimony on that.
And lastly, is there anywhere that you can remember in your application material that describes the applicable Illinois Pollution Control Board noise standards?
We did provide a noise study provided by Krebs and Lansing.
That wasn't the question. Do you know anywhere in your application that the IPCB standards are stated?
Not off the top of my head, we did note that the project will be in compliance with noise requirements.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Any follow-up questions from you, Mr. Stanford? Okay, you can step down. Thank you.
You.
Mr. Stanford, you want to call another witness? That'd be. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Have a seat. Thanks. Ouch.
Please state your name, first and last.
Andy Galone, it's spelled Gullone.
Mr. Galone, do you work?
Yes,
Where do you work?
work for Civil and Environmental Consultants.
And is that short for, is the short form of that CEC?
Yes,
What does CEC do? And then I'll ask, what do you do for CEC?
we are a civil engineering environmental survey consulting firm. We have approximately 1,450 employees and 34 offices in various states. I specifically am a senior project manager. I work in our civil engineering practice. I coordinate several projects from field services to civil engineering design. And I ultimately review and seal the civil engineering plans for various projects.
Did you prepare, can you briefly describe your,
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology. I have approximately 21 years of experience as a consultant for 3 firms. I've been working for CEC for about 12 and a half years. The last 5 years have mainly been focused in the solar industry. I obtained my professional engineering license in 2008, and I'm a professional licensed engineer in the states of Illinois, North Carolina, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania.
you have prepared a resume, is that correct?
That's
Do
correct.
you have a copy with you here tonight?
Yes.
May I approach?
Sure. That doesn't sound right, but let me, before I quibble. No, that'd be 9. 8 was a hard copy of, Mr. Schwier's PowerPoint.
Oh, terrific.
presentation.
That got in? Good. Okay. This will be number 9, at 9. So what is this document that I've handed to you?
This is my resume that I prepared.
When did you prepare this?
It's an ongoing document. It changes. About every year I update it.
Is this current?
Yes.
All right, and does this basically reflect some of the licenses and your education background?
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to point out on your resume?
Right now I'm working on approximately 10 solar projects in the state of Illinois, and I have other solar projects ongoing in about 10 other states.
What size are those projects? Are those similar to these projects, these community scale commercial solar energy facilities?
In the state of Illinois and Pennsylvania, they are the 5 megawatts or less. I've also worked on larger utility scale projects up to 80 megawatts.
Ron, if we could enter the exhibit into evidence?
Sure.
Thank you. That's petitioner number 9. Obviously you were involved in the solar projects we're here discussing tonight.
Yes.
And how did you get involved with these projects?
My company was contacted by Sundial. We prepared a proposal to provide the scope of services they requested. We won the work, and we've been working on this project since, I believe, November of 2024.
So just kind of summarize what the scope of work is that you were asked to do.
So we completed the Alta survey, which is the boundary, the survey of the parcels, the stream and wetland delineations, or also known as the waters delineation. We prepared all the rare, threatened, and endangered species correspondence, the State Historic Preservation Office correspondence, or SHPO. And then we compiled the decommissioning report, the emergency response plan, a couple other documents that we compiled into the special use permit application. We also prepared the site plan that was submitted with the special use permit application. And we compiled all those documents and provided that to Lee County.
All right, so when you say the special use permit application, you're referring to petitioner exhibit 4 and petitioner exhibit 5, which are these ring binders, correct?
That's correct. And the revised documents too that were provided.
And those are the smaller white binders, petitioner 6 and 7, correct?
That's correct.
So can you walk me through, so you mentioned some of the documents that you prepared for the special use application. Now, why did you do the revised submission, this petitioner 6 and 7, these smaller binders?
2 of the documents, 2 of the appendices that were provided in the smaller binders were not obtained when we submitted the special use application. The core no permit required letter, and then the SHPO clearance letter. We did not have those documents when we submitted the original permit, so we submitted those documents with the revised documents.
So that's the U.S. Army Corps, when you say Corps?
Yes, U.S. Army Corps.
And do you know that's Appendix H in each of the binders, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
And do you recall what the outcome of that report was?
Excuse me, the letter from the Corps stated that because there are no stream or wetlands on the site, we could not impact any stream or wetlands, and therefore we do not require a permit from the Army Corps.
That's for both projects?
Correct, both projects.
How about Appendix J, that Illinois State Historic Preservation Office clearance letter? What did that say?
That indicated that we did not have to do any further archaeological or historic structure reports or studies.
Is that because they didn't find any, they didn't believe there were historic resources under the soil here?
So for the archaeological study, they determined that the projects were not in a high probability area. And then the historic structure, they felt that it wouldn't affect the view shed.
So we talked about two of the items in the appendix in the smaller binders. There was also a revised site plan
Mhm.
included, correct?
Correct.
And you heard Mr. Schwer testify that the project was moved, correct?
That's correct.
And why, do you recall why the project was moved and how it was moved?
So based on the meeting with Palmyra Township residents, the developer Sundial wanted to make some changes to help, reduce the view shed impact and increase the distance from the solar project to those residences. So we pushed and moved the solar project further east.
So then, in your site plans, I'm looking at C200 in the revised copy, C201, and then C202. In C202, what is this this chart or graphic at the bottom of C202? And I can give you a copy of this here.
This is a profile of the existing ground. If a person were to be standing approximately 6 feet off the ground, looking towards the site, that would give them an approximate view shed of what the solar project will look like.
All right, right now that binder's for the south project, correct?
This is the north project.
That's the north, okay. And then, so can you describe kind of that diagram a little better? How did the moving the project, affect the elevation of the view shed of the neighbors?
So the existing topography of the site, if you look at both projects combined, there's a ridge line, a high point in the southwest portion of the south project. And that ridge line goes in a northeast direction. So it kind of splits the drainage into two different directions. But for the Mount Hill South project, the further east we moved the site, it actually put it on the downslope side of this ridge line. So the natural terrain of the ground will block the majority of the solar panels. And similar, we received similar responses for the north project, but the ridgeline is much further away from the road on the north project than it is on the south project. So we weren't able to, hide as much of the panels as we did on the south project, but it still put a majority of the panels out of the view shed.
So that's that diagram. Did your office prepare that diagram there that shows kind of the elevations?
Yes, we prepared that.
All right, so could you walk us through some more of the topography of the site,
Mhm.
of each site, please?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the ridgeline splits the drainage into kind of two directions, west-east. Overall, the site flows from the north to the south. So the west portion of the site will drain towards Mount Hill Road. There is an existing channel along that road. I do want to emphasize that's a channel. It's not a stream. We did a delineation and we determined it was not a stream. So each driveway will be over that channel, and we will install culverts in each driveway to convey the flow in the north-south direction so we don't impede any water and cause any backup on the Mount Hill Road. On the eastern portion of the site, again, it drains from north to south. There's an existing surface feature there that'll collect the water and discharge it to the south property.
There's a stormwater, did you do any stormwater calculations, or is that to come?
We prepared preliminary stormwater calculations.
Can you describe what you found preliminarily?
Yes. So when you do hydrology calculations for a project like this, there's three major variables that we look at. The drainage area is the size of the size of the watershed. There's also a time of concentration, which is the amount of time it takes from raindrop to flow from one part of the project to the outlet. And then there's the curve number, which is, it determines how much runoff ground can produce. The higher the runoff number, the more runoff it will produce. So an asphalt has a CN number of 98, it produces a lot of runoff. If you're in like a marsh, lowland area, it has a low number and produces less runoff. So with solar projects, we do add a little bit of gravel and a little bit of impervious. But the main contributory factor is the CN runoff coefficient. Straight row crops, which is what this existing land is, has a very high number. Bare earth has a high runoff number, usually in the 80 to 89 range. When we plant the pollinator seed mix and when it establishes vegetation, it likes the water. It absorbs it more than the existing ground will. So it actually lowers that curve number. We're also not mass grading the site. We're not changing the drainage area. We're using the land as is, other than where the access road is. So it doesn't change the drainage area size and it doesn't change the time of concentration. So the variable that we change is the CN number. And since we decrease that number from a straight row crop to a pasture land, it actually reduces the amount of stormwater.
So in summary, is the solar project going to help stormwater or is it going to hurt it?
It will help it. It will reduce the flow.
And is there anything about the type of plants or pollinators they're putting in that is better for drainage?
Yes, it will absorb more water. They're deep-rooted vegetation that'll be established and absorb more water than the straight row crops do.
So while we're talking about vegetation, was your office responsible for the vegetative screening plan, initial vegetative screening plan that was prepared?
Yes.
And where would we find that in the binders? Would that be on the site plan?
Yes, it's on page C200.
And can you walk us through the proposed vegetative screening here?
Yes, we propose some shrubs and trees in combination. The purpose is to, not only screen it now, but also, 20 to 30 years down the road. So as the trees grow taller, the shrubs will help protect that lower elevation screen, and then the trees will take over that upper vegetation level. And right now, the landscape plan is proposed along in the north-south direction in between Mound Hill Road and the fence. We did push, as the site moved to the east, we also moved the vegetation to the east. So it's about 20 feet away from the fence line.
So now while we're talking about the site, can you tell me about, there was a question, I believe, at the last hearing about the road, the access roads.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe where those are on each of the sites and what those are made out of?
Yeah, they begin at Mound Hill Road. You'll drive to the east. There'll be a couple of S-curves to get into the site. Based on the revisions, we had to put some alignment, some curves in the alignment. We did complete geotechnical borings. We did those last week, and it shows about 12 inches of topsoil. So where the access roads are, we will strip to 12 inches of topsoil, place a geotextile fabric, and then we're probably going to recommend coarse aggregate number 6, or also known as CA number 6. That's an IDOT specification. It has both some 1-inch and 2-inch materials, but also some fine grain material that'll help with compaction of the road. We want this road to last, 25 to 35 years with minimal maintenance. The topsoil we will stockpile on the eastern part of the site because when we decommission the project, we have to remove this topsoil. So versus trying to buy topsoil in the future and haul it in, we're just going to stockpile it. When we remove the gravel, we'll put the original topsoil back in place, and it'll be back to its preconditioning.
So is this topsoil going to be stored on a mound, or is it going to be flattened out, or what's?
We'll berm it so it doesn't impede stormwater runoff, but yeah, it's not going to be more than a 3 or 4 foot high berm.
But the calculations will be done on whatever topsoil you put over there, correct?
Yeah, we don't want to export any material from the site.
So while we're talking about the construction, can you talk a little bit about the piling that goes on? We had some questions about the steel pilings. Can you
Mhm.
describe that process a little bit?
From my understanding, the piles will be, laid out on the ground, spaced, I believe approximately every 30 feet for the racking. And then there'll be a piece of equipment that picks it up. And it's similar to a guide rail installation where those H piles are that kind of hold up the beam along a road. It's just driven into the ground.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether these would be hazardous materials that are being piled into the ground?
I do not have knowledge.
We mentioned, back to your application, the revised application here in the smaller binder, there was also a signed and sealed decommissioning report. Can you talk about why that was provided?
The original application, it was not signed and sealed, so I had to provide another one that was signed.
So were you responsible for preparing the decommissioning report
It was completed under my oversight, yes.
as well as the revised copy, correct?
That's correct.
And do you recall the decommissioning value? I can give you a copy if that would help. It's on Appendix D of the exhibit.
So there are three main numbers with the decommissioning report. The first number is the demolition and restoration cost. That is to, hire a contractor to mobilize to the site, obtain permits that we'll need to remove the material. And then it'll include all removing the material, the piling, the wires, the gravel road. There's also cost to do topsoil restoration for the site. So that demolition and restoration cost is approximately $867,000. There's also a salvage cost. So some of these materials we'll be able to sell or reuse in the future. So there's a price amount allocated to that. That's shown as the salvage estimate. That price is approximately $209,000. So then the demolition cost itself is the difference between the two numbers. And that number is approximately $658,000.
Is there any security that's posted for the decommissioning of the site?
Yes, the applicant will have to post a bond.
Okay. Now, in this small binder, the revised copy, there's also is the revised vegetative management plan? I'm sorry, I'm skipping around here. How did that differ from the initial vegetative management plan?
We included, I believe the original plan had to cut the grass at 10 inches. We reduced that height to 6 inches. Then also included some more guidance on sheep grazing if that was an option for the operation and maintenance of the facility.
And Appendix O, the last one here in this revised binder, talks about a revised fire protection plan. Do you know what that is?
Yes, we added section 2.5, which is annual training for the emergency response team.
So have you had any outreach with emergency response teams?
We have not yet to this date, but we will.
And have you done that for other projects? At what point in time do you typically do that for the other projects you worked on?
Typically, it's done, there's no set time frame, but it has to be done before the building permit is issued.
And what do you discuss with these EMS folks?
Talk about fire truck access, equipment that's used, any sort of safety precautions that's used. Make sure they can have access through the gate because this is a secured facility. Make sure they have contact information of the owner and operator and who to call.
Do you provide them a copy of your plan of operations?
I do not prepare the plan of operation.
But would that be something that would be normally provided?
Yeah, that normally the owner and operator would provide that.
What are the next steps for the project if this were to be recommended for approval and approved for a special use?
So we are in the process of finishing our geotechnical report. That our information is needed for the structural certification that's required as part of the application. And then we have to finalize our engineering plans and our hydrology calculations. Those will be submitted to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency in order to obtain our ILR 10 permit. That's also like the land disturbance permit. And then then we'll have to go and submit for the building permit. And the road use agreement is still needs to be obtained as well.
How do you obtain a road use agreement?
For this particular project, we will work with the Palmyra Township Road District, and get the agreement.
So that's the permitting jurisdiction for the road is Palmyra Township?
Yes.
Is it also typical to prepare a drain tile survey?
It is typical, yes.
And why is that done?
It's done to locate the existing tile just in case something is damaged. It at least provides the construction, the EPC contractor, like knowledge of where drain tiles are. They can also move the piling posts if they do think there's going to be an impact, so they can move those around and to avoid them.
Is that typical that the drain tile study's done before the building permit is issued
Yes,
and after the special use permit?
yes.
When a drain tile is impacted by the piling of the racking, what's the developer or the owner's responsibility with respect to that drain tile that was damaged?
They have to repair it.
Is that also part of their agricultural impact mitigation agreement?
Yes, the agreement provides some general details on how to repair the damaged drain tiles.
One moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Okay, great. Well, let's go around the horn. Ms. Zoning Officer Hinkle?
I have no questions.
ZBA members, in order of seniority, Mr. Burrow?
You talked about the runoff and the seeding of the grasses and whatnot. Do you have a specific study in mind or that you refer to as the amount of water that the soil will take in until it's saturated and how much runs off, or does that vary with the soil types?
So it varies with the soil types. There's 4 different soil types, A, B, C, and D. And then each of those vary depending on the ground cover. But those numbers are dictated by the TR20 method.
So you have not done a study yet of these soils at this project yet, or?
There's an online soil map that we use that
Yeah.
tells us the soil ratings, the A, B, C, or D, and then we use the, what's there to do our calculations as far as the vegetation.
Okay. There was a question raised about testing groundwater before and after. Is that anything in your area of expertise, or?
It's not in my area of expertise, but my company does provide groundwater sampling.
Is this something that other projects have done in the United States or not, do you know
I have not been hired to test groundwater for solar projects.
of? Okay. I think that's all. Thank you.
You've moved up quickly in the order of seniority, Mr. Phelan. Next.
Out of curiosity, on the northern Mount Hill Road project, why are you guys not utilizing the northwest corner of the proposed project outline? Do you see that the corners at an angle? I just was curious if there's something.
Just one question at a time, just one question.
The fence line, I can't answer that. I think it's just based on how the panels were laid out.
Okay, no further questions.
Mr. Crawford?
Is there going to be an erosion barrier around the construction site?
Yes, we'll use silt fence.
Is there a time frame after construction that you take that down depending on how the flowers and grass and stuff are grown?
We need to obtain 70% vegetation before we can take down any erosion control measures and submit the notice of termination.
That's all.
Yeah. Well, I have some. going to ask the question again. Did the Mound Hill Road Solars provide copies of the site plan, standard operating procedures, and standard operating guidelines to emergency responders?
Not at this time.
I'll ask you, do you know of anywhere within your application that details for the class of land and this project, the applicable Illinois Pollution Control Board noise standards?
No, we do not specify
All right.
those standards.
Forgive me for not taking better notes, but you were describing how moving the project would put a ridge line that would help obscure the view, largely of which, the north or south project?
South.
Okay, so the north would be a little less so, right? Correct?
Correct.
Your, Mr. The previous witness testified that the access road be of number 5 aggregate, but you're saying number 6?
Course aggregate number 6 is a typical design for these access roads.
Did you say how deep the aggregate would be?
Approximately 12 inches.
So you'd remove 12 inches topsoil and then put down the fabric and then 12 inches of aggregate, correct?
Correct.
Right, thank you. Interested parties, questions of this witness? Those in the courtroom ought to go first because you bothered to come here. So raise your hand if you got questions of this witness. Go ahead, come on up. You know how to do it, and you don't need to state your name and residence again.
On the previous projects that you have done for these solar fields, have you ever used anything other than galvanized steel as pylons?
We have used concrete ballasted systems, but we've only used those on landfills or brownfield sites where those sites have a cap associated with them, so groundwater doesn't penetrate them. And if you were to put a pile on that cap, it would cause a hole, and then groundwater would be allowed to infiltrate. So on landfills, on brownfields, we typically put a concrete ballasted system.
Are there any federal or state or local restrictions on driving pylons near groundwater, near not the groundwater, the wells? The water table. Are there any federal, state, local regulations on how close you can drive those pylons to the water table?
Not that I'm aware of, piles are driven all over for the guide rail. It's similar to the guide rail installation. And those are typically along streams.
Have there been any studies performed on the degradation of these pylons?
Not that I'm aware of.
Have you visited a solar field? What's like the oldest solar field you've ever visited, or have you only ever been there when they're being constructed?
I visited about a year and a half ago. I went to an operating solar field that was in operation for probably 2.5 years. It was a 20 megawatt facility, so 4 times the amount of power as a North project.
Do you recall the condition of those pylons? Were they rusting at all?
I do not remember.
With your expertise and experience, does the galvanized coating hold up to friction and heat that occurs during installation?
I can't answer that question.
when installing these pylons, how deep are they driven?
Typically, pylons are driven 7 to 8 feet in the ground.
You moved the project back, I believe, on the south project back. Do you know what the depth on the water table is in that area? Is it on those plans?
We have not completed any groundwater study.
Okay. When will that study be complete? Or approximately?
So the geotechnical report, that can give like an estimate of the groundwater, but that's still not a true groundwater study. We would have to drill monitoring wells in order to actually determine the groundwater table.
Have you ever participated in the decommissioning of a project?
No.
I believe you have that decommissioning plan in front of you. You're talking about the costs associated.
Mhm.
Does it estimate how much steel is to be used on the project and the value that you would get out of it?
Yes. This
I
is
don't know, I don't think he knows if there's a question pending.
I was just wondering how much steel that they estimate they're.
Just ask him.
They're
How much
going to
steel do you
recycle.
estimate?
That's what I tried to
would be
ask.
recovered.
Sorry if it was confusing. I
No,
apologize.
that's all right. Just trying to help.
So I have the Mount Hill Road North decommissioning in front of me. We estimated about 90 metric tons of steel. That would be both for the racking system and the piles.
Is there anything on the engineering plan for the roads to prevent that aggregate from getting on to Mound Hill Road from the vehicles that travel to and from there?
So during construction, part of their SWIP, their Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, will be to maintain a clean road. So they will be required to clean dirt and gravel from the road. The gravel, since we're stripping 12 inches and we're going to put 12 inches back, it'll be at the same elevation as the existing ground. So we don't anticipate a lot of gravel. Plus, there's not going to be regular traffic to bring gravel onto the road. So we only anticipate maintenance being out there 4 to 6 times a year. If there is gravel on the road, then the applicant will be required to remove it.
But there isn't a rock catch or a like a mud catch at the end of those in the plans at all for the project for the roads.
During construction, we will have stuff in place, a regular rock construction entrance to keep mud from going onto the road. And again, it will be clean during the road. But I'm not aware of any long-term device that we would install to keep gravel on the road.
That's all I got.
Okay. Other folks with questions? Yep, come on up. And again, you don't have to state your name this time, Mr. Hermes, go ahead.
What quarry are you planning on getting the crushed aggregate six out of?
I don't know.
How much topsoil do you say you're going to be removing?
Approximately 12 inches where the gravel access road will be.
And will you be removing all of that aggregate at decommissioning?
Yes.
There will be no signs of any aggregate whatsoever
The part of
in the
decommission-
field.
Well, let him answer the question.
The aggregate will be removed and then the topsoil replaced where the aggregate was removed.
That's not what I asked you. I said, will it all be removed? All aggregate.
That's the requirement.
Okay, good enough.
I have a question to follow up on his. What would happen, what will you do with the topsoil that you stripped until you put it back?
We'll place it in a berm on the east side of the site and place the vegetation on it to prevent erosion.
And then in decommissioning, that berm would be scraped and put back on where it belonged?
Correct.
And one more quick one, more administrative than anything. So either to help my court reporter or I don't have to call her, did you remember your compatriot describing some type of screws that could be used to put in the piles?
Yes, I'm aware of those.
Would you
screws.
spell the kind of screws that he described?
I don't know if I can.
If you can.
No, I can't, sorry.
Would you sound it out phonetically? If you don't know, just say you don't know.
I don't know.
Okay, all right. Any follow-up, Mr. Stanford?
The soil and geotechnical boring requirements, the reports requirement, do you know when that is due in this permitting process?
It's due before the building permit because we have to provide the certification.
Same question as to the plan for the first responders, the coordination with emergency responders. Do you know at which time that is to occur in this permitting process? Pursuant to the
but-
ordinance?
Before the building permit.
Thank you. And after the special use, correct? Well, let me just say this. Is it acceptable under the ordinance in your view to do the coordination with emergency responders after the special use permit is issued
Yes, I believe it's acceptable.
and before the building permit?
But before the, yes,
Okay.
yes, it has to be done before the building permit is issued.
Thank you.
Did it? Okay, you may step down. Thank you. Good time for a break? Well, unless you're going to say something about,
We have one more witness, Mr. Marus, but he couldn't be here tonight. So I think that's it unless the interested parties wanted to make their presentations tonight.
no,
Otherwise-
I don't want to do that
Okay, yes,
for
sir.
a couple of reasons, but,
Yes, sir. So that would be all the witnesses we have for tonight.
okay, well, rather than a break, I'll call a recess. We talked last time about April 14th as the next one. That would be this coming Monday, I think. Are you still on board for that, Mr. Burrow?
Yes, I will now.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Phelan,
Yes, I will.
Mr. Crawford,
Yes.
6:30 working okay for everybody? You guys particularly? Okay. I'll recess until Monday, the 14th at 6:30 PM here in the old Lee County Courthouse. Everybody have a good weekend.